What if your choices are not really yours? Brain scans reveal that your decisions begin up to 7 seconds before you are even aware of making them. 90% of everything you do today will run on autopilot, shaped by forces you never agreed to and patterns you cannot see. You may not be choosing anything at all, and the evidence starts inside your own skull. In the early 1980s, a neurologist named Benjamin Libet invited volunteers to sit quietly and flex their wrists whenever they felt like it. Electrodes placed on their scalps measured the faint electrical signals in their brains. Libet's question was simple: when does a decision truly begin? The answer, according to his data, was unsettling. A slow electrical buildup called the readiness potential began ramping up hundreds of milliseconds before participants reported any conscious urge to move. On average, the readiness potential started about 550 milliseconds before the action, well before people felt they had decided to act. The moment of awareness lagged behind the brain's preparation, suggesting that what felt like a conscious choice was actually a late arrival to the party. Years later, German neuroscientist Dr. John Dylan Haynes took this experiment further. Using functional MRI, his team scanned the brains of volunteers as they chose to press a button with their left or right hand. The scans revealed patterns in the prefrontal and parietal cortex that could predict which hand a subject would move, up to 7 seconds before the person reported making a decision. The computer's predictions were not perfect, but they were right about 60% of the time, far above chance. This meant that the brain's machinery for action was already in motion long before any conscious intention bubbled up. Other labs have confirmed these early signals using both EEG and fMRI. In some studies, the neural markers of a choice appear as much as 10 seconds in advance, especially for simple, spontaneous decisions. These signals show up as subtle shifts in electrical activity or changes in blood flow, forming a kind of neural countdown. The conscious mind, it seems, steps in only after the process is well underway. Critics have debated whether these brain signals truly represent a commitment to act or just a buildup of possibilities. Yet the fact remains, our sense of willing a movement or making a choice consistently trails the brain's silent preparations. Dr. Haynes and his team have shown that even abstract decisions, like choosing to add or subtract numbers, can be predicted by unconscious brain patterns seconds before awareness. The implication is clear. What feels like a free choice may be the result of neural processes unfolding out of sight. The story of our decisions begins before we know we are in it. Most of the time, decisions seem effortless. The hand reaches for a phone, the mind drifts to check a notification, or a familiar route is driven without recalling a single turn. Psychologist Daniel Kahneman calls this automatic pilot System 1, a fast, instinctive mode that handles about 90% of daily choices. System 1 is always on, scanning for patterns, responding to cues, and running well-worn routines. It is the reason a person can spot a friend's face in a crowd instantly or finish a sentence before it is spoken. But it is also why the same breakfast is eaten, the same news is scrolled, and the same apps are opened in the same order every morning. Habits form through what researchers call the habit loop. A cue triggers the routine, which delivers a reward. Over time, the brain's reward system, driven by dopamine, wires these loops so tightly that behavior unfolds before conscious thought catches up. A phone buzzes, a cue. The hand reaches out, a routine. A new message appears, the reward. Dopamine spikes not just at the reward, but at the anticipation, training the brain to repeat the cycle. Variable rewards, like unpredictable social media notifications, make the habit even stickier. Studies show that app sessions can increase by up to 50% when rewards arrive at irregular intervals, mimicking the pull of a slot machine. Most choices feel personal, but experiments reveal how easily the mind fills in reasons for actions taken on autopilot. In choice blindness studies, people explain and defend decisions they never actually made, unaware that their original choice was secretly swapped. When asked why they preferred one face or product over another, participants offered confident explanations, never noticing the switch. The mind's narrator steps in after the fact, weaving a story of intention to match the action. System 2. The slow, deliberate mode of thinking does exist, but it is lazy by design. It steps in only when a problem is unfamiliar or when something goes wrong. For most daily actions, the brain prefers the efficiency of automaticity. This is not just a quirk of psychology, it is an energy-saving strategy. The result is a life that feels self-directed. While most movements, clicks, and choices follow paths carved by repetition and reinforced by hidden rewards, the unsettling part is how invisible these loops become. What feels like a decision is often a reaction. What seems like a preference may just be a habit, shaped by cues and dopamine, repeated until it becomes the background music of daily life. Awareness rarely arrives in time to interrupt the cycle. Instead, the sense of agency is patched in after the fact, leaving the impression of control where there may be none at all. Every day, invisible systems quietly shape the choices that seem personal. Social media feeds, streaming platforms, and shopping sites all run on algorithms designed to predict what will keep you engaged a little longer. Recommendation engines track every click, pause, and scroll, learning patterns so well that the next video, song, or product feels like it was plucked from your own mind. But the logic behind these suggestions is anything but neutral. Platforms constantly run experiments, including A/B tests, interface tweaks, and notification timing, all tuned to maximize engagement. When Netflix introduced autoplay, average session length jumped by 30%. YouTube's algorithm, optimized for watch time, doubled the number of daily video views within months of its redesign. Even the color and placement of a notification can boost app retention by 15%, according to internal metrics. These changes are not accidents. They're the product of teams of designers and engineers whose job is to make every interaction just a little harder to resist. One anonymous designer from a major tech company described how the team measured success not by user satisfaction, but by minutes spent, clicks per session, and frequency of return visits. The more time people spent, the more valuable they became to advertisers. Engagement became the North Star, even when it meant nudging users toward endless scrolling or sending notifications at moments of predicted boredom or loneliness. Nudge theory, borrowed from behavioral economics, plays a quiet but powerful role. A default setting, a highlighted button, an autoplay countdown. These subtle cues steer choices without removing options. The illusion of freedom remains, but the boundaries are set by someone else. The feedback loop is relentless. The more you interact, the more the system learns, narrowing your options to what keeps you coming back. Over time, the platform's incentives become your habits. What feels like personal preference is often just the path of least resistance, engineered by algorithms designed to know you better than you know yourself. Domenico Mattiello was once known for his patience and steady moral compass. He held a stable job, cared for his family, and lived a life that drew no particular attention. But over the course of several months, friends began to notice small cracks in his behavior. He became impulsive, snapping at coworkers, making reckless decisions, and acting on urges he would have once resisted. His relationships strained. He gambled away savings, lied to his wife, and found himself unable to explain why he kept making the same mistakes. The man who had once been trusted with others' secrets now seemed unable to keep his own. Doctors eventually discovered a tumor pressing against the frontal and limbic regions of his brain, areas responsible for impulse control, empathy, and moral reasoning. The diagnosis explained the sudden shift. The tumor's slow growth had quietly rewired the circuits that governed his sense of right and wrong. What felt to Mattiello like a series of personal failures was, in fact, a biological override. He could remember how he used to act, but the urge to do otherwise was gone, as if someone else had taken the wheel. After surgery to remove the growth, the changes reversed. Mattiello's self-control returned. He reconnected with his family, returned to work, and was able to reflect on the period with a sense of disbelief. Medical records showed that the damage was not permanent. His behavior tracked almost perfectly with the tumor's presence and absence. The story left his doctors shaken. A small mass of cells had for a time hijacked the very machinery of decision-making, stripping away the illusion of control that most people take for granted. In the end, the difference between a life of integrity and a spiral of self-destruction had come down to a few grams of tissue pressing on the wrong part of the brain. Every day, unseen patterns and neural signals decide before you feel the urge to choose. Awareness alone won't break the cycle, but it can disrupt the autopilot. In a world of invisible influence, the real act of agency may begin with questioning every impulse. What shapes your choices?